I thought it would be kind of neat to do what I've learned now that I've been using mods first time.
So it begins.
I never played games on PC. I was always a console guy, specifically Xbox. And that was for a couple of reasons. The first thing was that TV screen I had was always bigger. Think like 40 to 50 inches, the TV screen, like that size, right? I don't have a monitor as big. Reason number one as to why I was played on the console, bigger screen. The second one, mainly because I couldn't get into playing games with a keyboard and mouse. So because I'd been so used to playing with a controller, because of the bigger TV screen, I couldn't just grasp playing any game to the keyboard and mouse. Like, it had to be a controller. And admittedly, I didn't know that I could simply plug a controller into the PC and play on the PC with a controller.
Are you serious?
I know. Then, I built my own PC. And I thought, hey, I spent all this time and money building PC with all the parts that I bought. I should try to make more use of it. That's when I decided I would try to endeavor to start gaming on my PC. And logically, I would start by playing one of my favorite games of all time. And so I downloaded it from Steam. Now we have Skyrim open. This means I can now play with the official Skyrim mods. Playing with mods after spending years of not playing with mods because I was like, look at all these different mods. They're so cool. They're so great. You know, if I'm playing with mods, well, I'm probably gonna play with the ones that have the highest number of thumbs up. Logically speaking, that would mean they're the most popular. And if they're the most popular, then it's not too far-fetched to assume that they're gonna be the best mods. That's why I got the most thumbs up, right? Mods would be very popular, maybe even downloaded by a bunch of other people, right? So you would just click into it, the mod. It's bookmarked 635,000 times, 58 million views, 55 million plays. Oh, this must be one of the best mods, right? So I would download these kinds of mods. But there are some things that I picked up as well. This mod, you know, because it's very popular, based on like the plays, the views, the bookmarks. What is it about? There's some important things that I've picked up, which is that, you know, they would say the version, but also sometimes they would, in the mod description itself, they would mention the load order of the mod. For example, in this case, this unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch mod. This mod needs to be at the very top of the load order. This should be first. No other mod should go before it in terms of the load order, right? This is just one. Some others would be like, they have to load before or after certain kinds of mods. And some would say, you know, load it at the very end. Like, there should be no other mods below it. That's one of the things I've picked up where the load order of the mod matters. So it's like, okay, well noted, right? I'm just gonna trawl through these Bethesda mods, Official Creation Club mods, and, you know, download all the mods I want, basically, and I'll order all of them afterwards, you know, in one fell swoop, right? So what we do is, for example, I've downloaded some mods already, just as an example. We go here, let's take unleveled items. That's an example, you know, let's move this down to the bottom. Because maybe one of these mods would say, like, we need to move it to the bottom. I mean, this mod doesn't say that specifically, but you'll get where I'm going with this. Let me press LB, because I'm using Xbox controller. I plugged it in. And you can see, we're gonna move this all the way to the bottom. Right, this was originally third in line after these two disabled mods. So we're gonna go back and back out, and basically the game's acknowledging I've changed the load order, basically save and reload the data files accordingly. Let's let that happen. Okay, cool. So now that it's loaded that, let me just see if it's actually done that, right? So you go back into creations. Great. Open the load order. Nothing has changed.
Emotional damage!
Huh. What the hell? Right? I know for a fact that I'd moved this all the way down to the bottom from third. Right? And it supposedly, you know, I backed out, it supposedly saved, the game supposedly saved, and then reloaded the game according to that revised load order. But when I go and double check, nothing's changed. What the hell? What gives? And what was annoying, right, is, you know, you can see there was no way to kind of move that mod to the bottom of the list in a fast manner. I had to kind of manually move it one by one below each of the other mods, right? So this one only had like 12 creations, but you can just imagine a load list that has like 100 as example. Let's say half of those 100, so 50 in total. 50 of them have say mods that have specific load order callouts in the description, right? This mod needs to be at the top. No other mods can be loaded before it. These mods, this other mod needs to be loaded before this, this other certain kind of mods. This mod needs to be loaded at the bottom. There should be nothing below it. If you have like 50 of those that need to have those sort of things, and then you have to move all 50 of those manually one by one, sorting out. You can't simply send it to the bottom and to the very top. You have to individually move them up or down one by one, above or below each other mod in your mod list, right? That's already massive pain. When you scale this up, it becomes a pain in the bum. And then the kicker is, as you just saw, it doesn't even save your manual changes. Absolute pain in the ass. So this then moves into, let's call this the second phase. Second phase is just basically confusion. Right? It's like, what the hell? What happened? Why wasn't my changes saved, or respected? Did I do something wrong? There's something wrong with the creations? Maybe it's just a glitch, right? Maybe I'll try again. Maybe it's just like a one-off glitch. Maybe it'll work this time.
2 hours later.
Big red face! Big red face!
Okay, it's not working. Something's definitely wrong. Maybe I'm an idiot, maybe I'm doing it wrong. Let's Google this effectively, right? Let's ask AI. So, I'm not an idiot. This is actually a legit problem that doesn't just affect me. That's good to know. It's not a me problem, it's a creations problem.
Everything's coming up, Millhouse!
Next logical question is like, okay, if Skyrim's creations menu isn't going to respect the manual changes I make to the load list of mods, do I have other options to download mods and be able to order them in such a way that my ordering and changes are respected? Great, we have other options. We have third-party programs. MO2, Vortex, Loot, Wabberjack, Nexus Collections. Great, MO2 is considered, the best tool for advanced users. And then there's like, summaries. So let's go with MO2, right? It's considered the best tool. Sure, advanced use, but it's considered the best tool, right? So it allows you to drag and drop load orders instantly without the gamer receiving them. This solves the problem. Let's get MO2. We're going to kick out creations, we're going to move on from creations, get about it, and we're going to move over to MO2.
We're blasting off again!
Alright boys, here we go. Mod Organizer 2. Create a Nexus account, download Mod Organizer 2. Now that we've downloaded Mod Organizer 2, in order to be able to proceed any further with having our game utilize mods from Nexus and Mod Organizer 2, we're going to need to do things first. Firstly, we need to change the location of our game folder in Steam. Let's just say we use Tainted Grail 4 of Avalon as an example. Game itself, when you download the games from Steam, one important thing to note is that they are put in the program files loaders. If you don't modify or change anything when you originally set things up, that's where it's going to load. So here, as an example, right? PC, local disk C, program files 86, Steam. So it's within this Tainted Grail from Steam, within the program files folder of my C drive. I didn't change anything, right? I'm not that advanced. This location actually doesn't work, especially if you're using external mod managers to download and play with mods. This is because program files, as my understanding is, it's like a protected system folder of your PC. Windows will treat any third-party program, such as MO2, that tries to change or modify files within program files folder as a potential security threat. Now this can cause errors such as access denied, or even the entire folder to be flagged as read-only, which is problematic, especially when you have modding tools that need to override some config files in order to function. The solution to our problem is, well, we can't drag and drop the game folder somewhere else, because there's a chance that this could possibly break the registry paths with Steam. What you should really do is add a new Steam library location folder on your PC first.
Write that down, write that down!
Me personally, that's what I did. Local disk C, games, and I created a Steam games subfolder. You don't have to do that necessarily, but that's just the way I did it. And now that I've created this new folder location in C drive that's outside of program files, all we need to do is we need to move game location from Steam, from program files, to disk C drive. The official method, really, in order to do this move, right click Tainted Grail, and I go Properties, Installed Files, and then we're going to choose Move Install Folder. Now on the Move Content, I click. Doesn't seem to recognize it any other option, like the only option it's selected is the only option available. This is a problem. Officially, I wasn't able to do it this way, but I found out another way. Steam Settings. What you want to do is you want to go to Storage, click here, Add Drive. You can see I've already done it. 2 C drive styles, one with a star, one with not. It's recognized 2 locations. In the C drive star, there's my Tainted Grail and some other games that I've got. In the C drive without the star, there's my Skyrim and some other games that I've got. That's how you do it. You kind of add another drive here in the storage menu. But realistically, you would go C drive, add drive, this PC, local disk C, select the folder I created, so which would be Steam games. So select folder. So that is how I did my version of the game. That's how I was able to add it outside of program files folder, because I wasn't able to do it the official way. Think of this as the unofficial way. Now that we're here as well, we want to set things up as much as we can for ourselves. So when we're using NO2, I also then created a new folder called modding in my C drive. Basically, this is to keep things as clean as possible. So it's a folder where all the mods that I download are from Nexus via MO2. Those are where all the mods are kept.
Excellent.
C drive, modding, MO2, go mods. Here we go, right? So one thing to note is sometimes the mods that you want to download, they require other mods. As this example, let's look at Ryton Riften. Right? Say I want to download this mod. It's not as simple as just downloading this mod, call it a day. This mod has some other required mods that are needed in order for this mod to work. In this case, it's got 3. You've got 2 optional mods, so you can download them if you want, but it's not necessary. But this one, it's going to need, WizKids, Riften, and Ratway in order to work. It's not as simple as simply downloading a mod and calling it a day and go, yay, let's play with it now. There is some setup work that you have to keep that in mind, that this requirements thing is also a very important thing to read. So for a lot of them as well, sometimes it's not just as simple as another mod. Sometimes they need some other modder resource mods or utility mods. So some of the common ones that I found, let's split them up. In terms of like modders resources that are fairly common, well, at least for the mods that I've wanted to download, I would probably say address library, very important. Pyrus, containers, containers. And other ones I would say are loot and SKSE64. In terms of modder resource and utility mods that you should download from Nexus, I would say these are, for me at least, I found these, like a lot of the mods, if not all, basically needed me to have. So some of them are easier to get to work than others. Some of them is just like, I click on the thing, click visit Nexus mods. It's as simple as going install via the firmware install. Right? Sometimes it can be that simple. Other ones are more fiddly, like the SKSE64 loader. For these more fiddly ones, I would argue that YouTube is our friend. YouTube is our overlord. Hail our YouTube overlord. I watched this guy and also was reading the comments in order to help me set up SKSE64. In case anyone wanted to know, Dead Pixel Gaming how to install Skyrim script extender, Emo2 and Vortex. Now that we've set this all up, let's download some mods. So as an example, here's my Nexus account. Here are some of the mods that I've downloaded. I've done like 29 pages worth of mods. Yes, I went overboard, but it is what it is. You can download as many or as little as you want, up to you. Now moving back on to here. Besides these modder resource and utility mods, another ones are fixes and patches that have basically made the vanilla game a lot more stable and less prone to glitches, crashes, bugs, call it what you will. I would say that popular ones essentially, because I think I would argue that I've kind of only really downloaded the popular ones because I effectively just download them because they must be good and they must be the best mod. That's what I did. I would say that these mods that I've highlighted, they are probably more universal fixes and patches mods that a lot of other mods would want to use. I've obviously downloaded some extra, but I think those are more for my specific mods I downloaded. These ones I've highlighted, I would argue, are probably more universal. So anyone starting out would probably consider downloading these ones first, and then as you get more mods, you may decide to add more as you go along. Now we come to the section that I'm going to term important choices.
Take the red pill.
Let's start with the big one in terms of animations. Big choice that you have to make here is Fora's new idols, aka FNIS, Nemesis, and Pandora. So my understanding is FNIS, it's the oldest out of the three. There are some mods that specifically require FNIS, particularly older ones, prior to 2020. Then is Nemesis. As I gather, current top one-ish. Like, it does everything FNIS does, and then some more. This is the current flavor of the month. And then the last one is Pandora. It's like the new kid on the block. It's like in a beta stage, just been released / optimized. It does everything Nemesis does, and then some. Pretty new, and it's recommended if you haven't started playing with mods yet, or if you aren't married to the idea of, I'm going to use FNIS or I'm going to use Nemesis. For someone, say, starting out with mods for the first time or creating a new mod list from scratch to use, I think would probably want to go with Pandora. Second important choice regarding animation is Dynamic Animation Replacer, DAR, or Open Animation Replacer. Basically, Open Animation Replacer, OAR, it does everything that DAR does and then some more. You really should pick Open Animation Replacer. Another important choice, this one's more of a decision rather than a choice, admittedly. Let's say an important decision. So another decision that you have to make is CBPC physics as well as SMP. A little bit of background, CBPC, that's basically body physics of body mods. We can get to those later. In terms of your CPU performance, it is lightweight and efficient, so it has less of an impact on your FPS. And then you have SMP, so this is complex physics, realistic movement of moving parts of clothing and hair, like, hair blowing in the wind. It also handles body physics, but it is more demanding on your FPS and your CPU performance. In order for optimal performance, you would want to let CBPC handle the body physics and SMP handle your hair or clothing physics. SMP has sort of two mods out there. There's SMP and as well as like a faster HGT SMP. You really want to pick the faster HGT SMP because it's the most recent and up-to-date one. Third important choice, community shaders versus ENB. ENB, it's visually stunning, like absolute cinema, but it is very performance intensive, even on high-end PCs. It is not for potato PCs or old GPUs. If you're into internet drama and that sort of thing, the creator of ENB seems to be very much disliked. This led to the creation of community shaders, or CS for short. Community shaders, it's more modern and efficient since mods are actively being developed to try and compete with ENB because of the internet drama regarding the ENB author. Community shaders is also more supportive of VR as well, so if you want to use VR for Skyrim, you probably want to go community shaders. One thing I will say is if you are going to use community shaders, be sure to look out for visual, graphic, environmental mods that have PBR materials and terrain parallax. So when you pair this PBR terrain parallax with community shaders, and then you slap on like a reshade mod for sharpening, we'll talk more about reshades later, you will have yourself a visually stunning game that is on par with ENB. One final thing I will say is there are new community shader mods that are being worked on as we speak in a sense, so do keep an eye out for any new ones that drop. Another one in terms of an important choice is the weather and reshade mods that you choose. So weather is important because these mods can kind of dictate how your game looks because they control baseline color, brightness, as well as lighting. You can kind of use the weather mods to decide, you know, I want to go down a dark fantasy route, a realistic route, a gothic route, a warm and sunny thing. However you want your game to look, it's easily dictated by the weather mod that you pick. Again, pick whichever one floats your boat. The other one is reshade. These mods are made specifically for certain weather mods. You should really pick the one that is specific for the weather mod that you ended up choosing. I thought it may be useful to show this. As of the start of 2026, here are some of the top weather and reshade combos. You got Azurite weathers for natural lighting. If you want more fantasy look, you have Nat 3 with this Horizons reshade and lighting. For more performance-minded individuals, you can go with Obsidians and the Faithful reshade. For more of like a gritty dark fantasy like The Witcher, Soulless / Wonder Weathers, along with a Cabbage. And now that we've answered all of this, I've moved the game location of the Steam folder to outside of program files to C drive. I've now set up my game folder, so it's now located outside of the program files. I have now set up my mods folder and I've downloaded the mods. Next setup is, now how do we get all of this to work? So I've now set up my game folder to be located outside program files. I have also downloaded all the mods I want. It's in one common place. So logically, how do we kind of put this all together? How do we use MO2? This is my understanding of MO2. Again, I could be wrong. There's probably more to it. I just probably have enough to know to get by, at least from my side of things, my way of using it. One thing is you want to sort by priority because this is basically tells you the load order of the mods, how they're currently set up. First thing you would note is that there's two different things. You have mods 0 to 9, which you will notice they don't have the checkbox next to them like 10 onwards do. The reason for this is these mods are effectively from the game itself. They're not downloaded externally by MO2 from Nexus or whatever. Basically from the game itself. DLC, Fire, Dragonborn, Dawnguard, as well as the Creation Club. General rule of thumb is that you want the DLC content to be loaded before the Creation Club content. Even though technically Dragonborn, my understanding, was released after Dawnguard, should load Dragonborn before Dawnguard. In terms of the DLC in the Creation Club mods, mine have been optimized accordingly already. The only ones that I really added in terms of like downloaded from the Creation Club was the Horse Armor, Steel, and Elven. So really, if you didn't download any other Creation Club, really have your DLC and Creation Club mods in this priority order, obviously removing the Horse Armor mods. So Fish would go up to like 6 and Resource Pack goes up to 7. Let's move on to mods 10 onward. As I said before, these mods will have checkbox next to them. This checkbox really indicates whether or not the mod is actually being enabled. Has it been enabled or not? Just because you've downloaded a mod, you can sort of disable mods. Maybe if you're testing, you encounter a glitch or a crashed desktop, you would then, disable mods to figure out what exactly is the problem mod. And if I disable this mod, does it now work? Has the glitch been fixed? That's why you would disable mods that you've downloaded here. I also will say, in order to sort of see this menu here, like the icons and what they actually mean, I had to go right click the grid and I had to do icons and text. It wasn't set up like that originally for me. I think it was like icons only. I do want to point out that this version number column is super important because if it's green, then it's like this mod is fine, it's up to date, it's the most recent mod. But if it's red, then that can mean that there's something else at play here. There are two different icons that you will see. If it's red, you're going to have either a down arrow within a yellow sun, or you'll have an exclamation mark within a red triangle. Let's talk about the exclamation mark inside the red triangle. Installed version, final v7, newest version, AEV3. Essentially, if you see this red exclamation mark within the triangle, you can hover over it to see the message just says that the version that you've installed here in MO2, it's newer than the latest available version on Nexus. This is confusing at first because you're like, how could I download a newer version than what's available on Nexus given I just downloaded whatever's on Nexus, right? The reason I say this is it can kind of get confusing in a sense that you're like, is this legit or is this just like a big nothing burger? Let's check it out, right? Because this one we have that as that red exclamation mark within the red triangle. Go visit on Nexus. Here's the mod in question. We'll jump to files. We're going to verify the version number. Like in here, we can see this is the main file. This is the version that like I downloaded it. There's nothing wrong with it. I will point out that sometimes that the version that you see in Nexus and you download that file, sometimes the version that appears in this column is not necessarily the same as the version number that you see. If that's the case, change the version number manually in MO2. Double click into it. So let's move on to the yellow icon, Embers XD. This has a down arrow in a yellow sun. Here basically it's saying the version that I've downloaded and installed via MO2, it's outdated because there's a later version number on Nexus. So again, let's check this out. Remember, I've got version 1.3. So this is the version that I got, 1.3. So I can see on the Nexus page, there's a version 2.4, but effectively this file is a patch. Embers XD, the Incredible mod. Now, I don't have the Incredible mod, so I don't need this file. Even though it's a later version, I don't believe I need it because I'm not using Incredible. I have this main file. We're good. So effectively, this yellow sun against here, I'm treating it as like a nothing burger. I'm just going to ignore it. So another super important thing to note is that Skyrim in MO2, there is an ESM and ESP limit of 256. ESM and ESPs are like the files of the mods you download. There's the mod limit, kind of 256. Realistically though, it's 254 because one slot is reserved for ESLs, every ESL that you have combined, and the other is reserved for your save game data. So one thing I should mention is when you download a mod file from Nexus, it can either be an ESP, like an ESPFE or ESL. Because of the limit of the ESPs, which is 254. If there is an ESL version or an ESL flagged version or ESPFE version of a mod that you have or want to download, you should really download those ones. As far as I understand, you can have an infinite amount of ESLs and ESPFEs because they just all get combined into one slot of your 256. Whereas your ESPs are counted individually, so there's a hard limit there. So you can see I've got 488 mods, I've got 796 plugins. So you would think, oh, if I got 488 mods, there's a big chance that I'm over the 254 mod limit. So in order to see how many ESPs, ESLs, etc., I go to the active field and I hover my mouse over the number. Here you can see I have got 114 ESPs, 19 ESMs, 133 ESMs, ESPs, etc. Really, we just want to add up the ESM and the ESP number. So 114 plus 19, 133. Even though I've got 488 mods, I've only used up 133 by 254 slot limit. I'm doing great. It is really important that you do not go over this 254 limit because one of two things will happen. Either the game will crash upon loading up the game, or, and this is what I ran into early on, some mods will fail to load, which can lead to like clipping issues or bugs in games. The problem is that the mods that fail to load, it's completely random. You don't get to decide. If you have visual overhauls or city overhaul mods and they don't load, and there are some other mods that you have that require that city overhaul mod to work, your game can look very funny with clipping issues and stuff like that. You really should not go over that 254 limit, and you really should look for ESL versions of the mods that you want to download. Another thing I will also point out is that in order to run Skyrim with all these mods that you've downloaded, you have to run it through MO2, not Steam. I will also point out that if you have installed SKSE64, you need to have added it as an executable in this drop-down menu. You need to select that from here and then click Run. So in order to add anything to this drop-down menu, it needs to be added as an executable. The way you do this is you go Edit, click the plus sign, add from whatever. So let's take SKSE64 as an example. The title here is effectively what is going to appear for this option when you select the down arrow and open the drop-down menu. The binary field, now this is the exe file of the executable in question. So in this case it's SKSE64, so my binary is the SKSE loader executable file, exe. The starting field. This needs to be the folder where that executable in the binary is located. So whatever folder this is in, I simply just put that folder located here. You can sort of see the only difference between here and here is that this is the executable at the end of the file path, whereas this ends just at the folder just before the executable located. I would also say that it probably is better if you download loot and you add it as an executable. While it's somewhat easy to organize the load order of the mod itself in this left-hand pane, just drag and drop. Loot itself is going to be able to automatically sort the plugins here on the right. So like, as you notice, right, sometimes your plugins order of 796 can be like way more than your mod order. So it's a pain in the ass to manually set these, especially as you scale up and as you add more mods to your mod list. So it's probably best to have that handled by a program, in this case, Loot. This is the URL for where to download Loot from. Once you install it, it should be added as a button here in the menu option, like up here. The Loot looks like this. You can sort the plugins. Now sorted for it officially, and that's what it's going to load in order of. Good thing about Loot is that Loot can also tell you about your various mods, give you some bit more details like if there's anything you need to be aware of, does it need to be cleaned, or some reminders like the occlusion here. Update this module with xloggen. We'll talk about cleaning now. Loot also has a summary of basically everything as well, of all the important stuff regarding the plugins that it puts up here. You can go and check out each individual one. So when it comes to cleaning, usually mod needs cleaning. It's going to mention ITM records, deleted references, deleted nav meshes, combination of two of them, or maybe all three at once. For example, here mentioned all three: ITM, deleted references, and deleted nav meshes. Unless you actually know what you're doing, I wouldn't touch update or the 3 DLC files. The other ones are probably fine to touch, but I really wouldn't touch these ones unless you actually know what you're doing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing, so I really wouldn't. And you can also see that if it needs to be cleaned, these message is going to be highlighted in yellow here. Now, in order to clean the file, even though it kind of gives it here, when I tried and experimented with it, it was not quite what I expected. Xedit didn't let me do it, so I had to do it another way. I would probably say in this executables, you'd want to add both SSE edit, aka Xedit, Dindolod, that's the xloggen thing that I mentioned earlier. I would also add your animation mod, Nemesis, Pandora, FNIS. In this case, I've got Nemesis. And body slide. This allows you to sort of create your own body types for NPCs, characters, etc. in the game. I would recommend adding them to your drop-down menu of executables. Take Nemesis as an example, but again, substitute this with Pandora and FNIS. Anytime that you add, delete, or update an animation mod, you should really run Nemesis. Personally, I do it after I make all my changes with all the animation mods, so I do it like at the end in one fell swoop. Similarly with Dindolod, anytime that you add, delete, or update a mod that affects a world space in Skyrim, like when you download a city overhaul mod, you should run Dindolod as the executable here. Again, I can do this at the very end, in one fell swoop once I've made all the changes I want to make with those mods. Now let's talk about cleaning. You will notice I have 2 Xedit executables here. Let's go to edit. Only difference between my SSE edit and the auto clean one is this quick auto clean edit is basically the executable that I created following the guide of AI chatbots on how to clean the files in Loot, which is the only difference is this argument where I've added -quick auto clean. So this will automatically clean those mods. You don't have to manually go make those changes line by line yourself.
But wait, there's more.
Another thing I would like to point out is the downloads tab on the right shows the status of all the mods that downloaded. You can right click this mod to delete or hide your downloads, installed, uninstalled ones, or even all of them based on the status. You can have 3 statuses: downloaded, uninstalled, deleted. I've set mine up to hide all installed mods because I don't need to sort of see them, and any uninstalled mods I just delete because there's no point in keeping them. Let's move to another important thing which I've kind of hinted throughout this video, and that is load orders. Load order is very, very important. You can see in this snapshot, here's like a general rule of thumb. The main concept of this is load orders are very important because it can result in mods not working as it's meant to be intended. So in the rule of thumb, you want your base game fixes, the utility/modder framework mods, meshes, textures. This is just a general rule of thumb. Although lighting is somewhat in the middle, I would probably download my lighting mods last because there are some mods I would be going afterwards, like maybe your weapons or armor clothing, that you would want lighting to hit off properly, show so your game looks nice, clean, real 2025 graphics and all that. I would probably download these mods before lighting mods, but once I download the lighting mods, I would then move it up in the load order above your weapons, armor, clothing mod. That's what I mean sort of by that. And another thing I would also point out is a little bit of a explanation for that rule of thumb, why it exists. I will say that some of these explanations directly references the mods that I am using and have downloaded. May or may not throw off your understanding. Feel free to pause the video, take a look and read this, maybe screenshot it for yourself so you can go through it in your own time. Lastly, I'm gonna point out some observations made along the way. Sometimes mods that are extremely popular are outdated. That's observation number 1. Don't always just download the mods that have the most number of endorsements or downloads because they can be outdated. Here's one that I know of, Immersive Armors. 438,000 endorsements, 3 million unique downloads, 13 million downloads. It hasn't been touched since 2015. It's like this is gonna be a mod that is completely outdated. Hasn't been touched in like 10 years. Another easy example I can think of off the top of my head is the snow mod. Better dynamic snow, simplicity of snow, no snow under the roof. Better dynamic snow is like a snow texture mod, but it really is outclassed by simplicity of snow. You don't need better dynamic snow. And sometimes mods that even say it needs better dynamic snow, you can get away with simplicity of snow instead. Yeah, some mods that have better dynamic snow listed as a requirement, you can get away with using simplicity of snow instead, because simplicity of snow is more lightweight and efficient than better dynamic snow. Another thing I would point out, now that I've opened the game from Steam effectively, I'm able to switch between tabs just fine. I can open like OBS, I can open internet, and it's still going to keep the game on screen on this monitor effectively. The reason is you probably don't see it, but on the other monitor, game icon on the start menu basically highlighted red as if to say, I haven't opened this icon from the task menu yet. This is actually a very useful and positive thing. Streaming and you've got a cough, sneeze, want to clear your throat, etc. Can the alt tab out, mute your mic, do your cough, your sneeze, unmute, go back, no one's going to hear it. It's nice and quick on that. Basically, once I select the icon from the task menu, kind of removes that red outline from the game. If I try to alt tab now, you can sort of see the game itself does not stay open. It minimizes itself when my desktop is open and OBS is open on my other monitor. It's not as great in that sort of thing, but you can't just keep the game open and sneeze or make a cough, that sort of thing, unmute your mic afterwards. Running Skyrim from MO2 basically is the same as opening the game icon taskbar menu. Once you do it, don't get the option of really alt swapping between windows on your different monitors and having the game stay open. The game will minimize while it directs itself to the window that you've alt tabbed on. And I haven't yet figured out a way keep game window open and switching between windows and programs on my other monitor. So yeah, those are just some things that I've picked up so far on my journey through modding. Yeah, I just thought this would be a neat thing kind of keep and record for myself. Maybe it helps others. I don't know. Maybe no one sees this. Who knows? But I thought it'd just be a little neat and useful thing, kind of show what I've learned.